You're around this morning on this beautiful winter day. I guess we're going to already have too much snow, but I guess there's more snow coming. Better get used to it, but it looks like winter's here for us. We want to make mention of those who are listed in the newsletter as having birthdays. Today, Matt Davis and Anthony Rossi on the 15th, Dan Kennedy on the 16th. Also, happy anniversary to Michael and Rose Tam. And make sure that your special dates are not being published. Make sure you get those to Terry so you can put those in the newsletter. Just a reminder that pastries and coffee will be continued to be offered on Sunday mornings from 8:50 to 9:15. A couple of changes that are listed in the newsletter. The Christmas caroling schedule for this afternoon has been canceled. So due to the weather, we're supposed to be getting some more snow, so they're going to go ahead and cancel the carolings for today. Also, the prime time luncheon for tomorrow has been canceled also. There is a last minute prep session this afternoon from noon to 2 p.m. And we're asking if the women of the congregation could stay after for a little while to help the girls with their singing today. If you are able to stay after, we appreciate your help with helping the girls with their singing. Reminder that our Moving Bible group will gather on this Wednesday at 6:30 to continue the teaching from Matthew's Gospel. Also, our monthly life groups will resume starting next Sunday the 18th at 6:30. Some will begin in the church building and some will be gathered at Nick and Haley Wildman's residence. So please make plans if you're able to attend the life groups also. Reminder of those who are listed in our newsletter, those who are sick and those who are shut in and need our prayers, please make sure you keep them in your prayers as well. Let's go to God in prayer at this time. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Father, we thank you for this winter day you've given to us. We thank you that you brought us all here safely this morning. Father, we ask you to watch over us and guide us in all that we do. Help each of us to stand for the truth, to always put you first in our lives and not let things of this world come before you. Father, be with us as we go throughout this worship today. Help us to focus on you and on Christ, to put those things of the world away for a little while. And Father, help us to worship you in spirit and in truth. This day, Father, we want to pray for all of our number who are sick and those who are shut in, those who are not able to be with us. Father, we ask you to be with them and take care of them as only you can. If it is your will, help them to return back to our portion of all. Father, we ask you to be with also all of those who are spiritually sick, those of our family and our friends who we work with, those who have never obeyed the gospel, those who are weak in the faith, and those who have fallen away. We ask you to be with them, Father, that they may realize their condition and they can start right with you, and help us to do all we can to encourage them and to study with them from your word. They may be obedient unto you, Father. Father, be with each of us as your children. Help us to grow and mature as your children, to study from your word. Father, we each sin and we do fall short of your glory. As we repent of those sins, Father, we ask you to forgive us of those sins and help us to overcome the temptation that leads to sin by studying your word daily and apply it in our lives. Father, we ask you to be with the leaders of our country. We ask you to be with all of those in the military and the armed forces and the protective services. Watch over those men and women and take care of them as only you can. We pray that your will be done by our leaders. Father, we ask you to just guide them as only you can. Father, you are so great and so wonderful. We thank you for allowing us Cortland University this day. We thank you for hearing our prayers. We thank you for answering our prayers. We love you, we praise you, we give you all the glory. We ask this prayer through your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Begin this morning, number 514, please. 514. You are the words and the music. You are the song that I sing. You are the melody. You are the harmony. Praising your name I will bring. You are the Lord of lords. You are the mighty God. You are the King of all kings. So now I give back to you the song that you gave to me. You are the song that I sing.
Lord, we thank you for the gift of your Son, Jesus, for offering him up for us. Lord, we thank you for the snow that we can admire and all the beauty that you're able to make with it. And we pray that we can enjoy it. Lord, let us have a great day. Let us learn more about you and be able to take part in the blessings of being able to have somewhere, a church, that we come together and that we can strengthen each other and pray for each other and uplift each other. It's in your name that we pray. Amen.
During our offering this morning, we'll be singing number 239. It will be on the screen. And we'll bear in one mind for the Lord's Supper. We'll sing 364. 364. 2 verses.
We gather here in Jesus' name. His love is burning in our hearts like living flame. For through the loving Son, the Father makes us one. Come take the bread, come drink the wine, come share the Lord. No one is a stranger here. Everyone belongs. Finding our forgiveness here, we in turn forgive all wrongs. He joins us here, he breaks the bread. The Lord who pours the cup is risen from the dead. The one we love the most is now our gracious host. Come take the bread, come drink the wine, come share the Lord.
Recently, we had a very extensive study on Jesus' sacrifice and his death. And we realized the brutal treatment that Jesus went through on his way to Calvary to be sacrificed. How he was mocked and made fun of, beaten, and spit upon, beaten almost to the point of death, and then hung up on the cross to die for our sins. And while the physical treatment that he went through was terrible, the worst part of it was that God turned his back on his Son and allowed him to die for each and every one of us. It's hard to imagine the love that God had, that he was willing to watch from heaven as that happened. But because of that, we have forgiveness of our sins, and we have the hope of eternal life in heaven. And as we partake of these emblems at this time, I pray that we would dwell upon that sacrifice, and we would remember that sacrifice and remember the love that God had for each and every one of us. Let's go to God in prayer. Father, as we gather together before this table to partake of this supper, we are so humbled when we think about how you could allow your Son to come to this earth and go through the ordeal that he went through, to die in our stead, to pay a debt that he didn't owe and a debt that we couldn't pay. Because of that, we are so thankful. And I pray, dear Heavenly Father, that we would remember that sacrifice every day of our lives, and not just when we come together on the first day of the week to partake of these elements. I pray that we would remember the sacrifice, we would remember the love. And through that sacrifice, we have been freed from the bondage of sin. And I ask at this time that your blessing will be upon this bread, which represents the body of our Jesus Christ, our Savior, and your Son. And I pray that you would bless us as we partake of it. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Father, as we continue with the service, I pray that we would dwell upon that sacrifice. And I pray that we would realize for a New Testament to be in effect, there must be a shedding of blood. And that shedding of blood was the pure and innocent blood of your Son, Jesus Christ, who washes down over us and frees us of our sins. I pray that we would remember while Jesus was nailed to the cross and suspended between heaven and earth for him to die. I ask for your blessings upon this cup that represents the blood of Jesus Christ and our Savior. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. provide for our physical. And I pray, dear Heavenly Father, that we would realize just how blessed we really are. Sometimes we feel sorry for ourselves. Sometimes we're not content with the blessings that we have. But I pray that you would help us to realize every day the blessings that we have. And I pray at this time that we may return a portion of those earnings that we have back to you. I pray that you will guide us in it, that we will spread your gospel in this area and meet the obligations of the church. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
I sing out a song, I sing out a love song to Jesus. In moments like these, I lift up my voice, I lift up my voice to the Lord, singing I love you, Lord, singing I love you, Lord, singing I love you, Lord, I love you. In moments like these, I sing out a song, I sing out a love song to Jesus. In moments like these, I lift up my hands, I lift up my hands to the Lord, singing I love you, Lord, singing I love you, Lord, singing I love you, Lord, I love you, singing I love you, Lord, singing I love you, Lord, singing I love you, Lord, I love you.
Our invitation song this morning will be number 552, will be on the screen. And before our reading the sermon, we'll sing 598. 598.
Day by day, and with each passing moment, strength I find to meet my trials here. Trusting in my Father's wise bestowment, I will cause for worry or for fear. He whose heart is kind beyond all measure gives unto each day what he deems best. Lovingly is part of pain and pleasure, mingling toil with peace and rest. Every day the Lord himself is near me, with a special mercy for each hour. All my cares he wants to bear to cheer me, he whose name is Counselor and Power. The protection of his covenant treasure is a charge that on himself he laid. As your days, your strength shall be in measure. This a pledge to me he made. Help me then
you please stand for the reading of God's Word? I'll be reading John chapter 3, verse 16 and 17. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him.
Very good. Very good, Nico. First time of many to come. Do you think, well, a beginner reader, you should give an easy assignment in John 3:16 and 17? But there are some big words there that are not normally in a young child's vocabulary. But Nico is a really good reader. We welcome you today. Let's enjoy George and Linda. They'll be with us just 2 more Sundays. Will you be here the 25th? No. 1 more Sunday? No. What a couple of babies.
Now you see him next time.
Yeah, we thought that they were the toughest of the snowbirds, and they would wait until after Christmas, and now they've just given up, succumbed. So they're headed south. And then, Jay, I think I heard you laughing. When are you guys headed south? After Christmas. You're going to be here for Christmas. So you're the tough ones of the bunch. Well, let's enjoy them. But say goodbye to George and Linda today. We will miss you. We do. We hope the very best for you folks down there, that you keep up Cortland South down there, and everybody stay healthy this winter. As I've mentioned in today's Family Matters, I want to do some preaching from the book of Ruth, from the book of Esther, and from the book of Job. These 3 books in particular from the Old Testament have been selected by those who oversee the lads to leaders, which is really a countrywide, if not worldwide, gathering of youth. And our kids will be going around, Easter weekend next year to Louisville to attend that version of Lads to Leaders. And part of their assignment is then to familiarize themselves with these 3 books, which is quite an undertaking, especially when you throw the book of Job into the mix. So I want to speak this morning about the book of Job. Am I right that some of our last leaders are making a video or a DVD about this? You already did it? You sent it in already. Well, I would have liked to have seen that. That would have helped me. That would have probably helped me with my sermon prep here today.
They did Ruth, not Joe.
Yeah, they did Ruth. That's what we're talking about today. And what I want to say, not only am I preaching from these 3 books because it'll maybe be helpful to the Lads to Leaders group, but for all of us. For the most part, I think we would agree on this, that our fellowship in the churches of Christ, we have a pretty firm grasp of the New Testament. We don't want to get the big head about that. And there's always much more to learn. But we're pretty good about tackling the New Testament. And this is good, but in so being really good on the New Testament, we've got to be careful that we don't neglect the Old Testament. And I think some of us have done that. A long time ago, back in the 400 AD, there was a man by the name of Augustine, or Augustine, as he's pronounced both ways. I don't know that he pronounced it both ways, but I've heard it pronounced both ways. And he once wrote something like this: the Old Testament is the New Testament concealed, and the New Testament is the Old Testament revealed. All that's saying is that there are many things in the Old Testament that are somewhat hidden, but when we get to the New Testament, they're made more clear. Probably the verse that comes to my mind that actually teaches this very thought from Augustine is Luke chapter 24 and verse 27. And this is Jesus as he's traveling after his resurrection. He's on the road to Emmaus one day, and he meets up with a man named Cleopas and another traveler whose name is not given to us. And it says in verse 27, beginning with Moses and all of the prophets. That's taking it back to the Old Testament. That Jesus, beginning with Moses and all of the prophets, he explained to them all of the things that of himself in the Scriptures. Now, the New Testament had not even been written yet. So there Jesus is bringing to light, revealing things that were hidden in the Old Testament times. He's making them clear. Another text, and I've given you this citation online if you want to look at it. 1 Peter 1 and verse 10 and 12 kind of corroborates the same idea. Well, I'm pleased, not in a braggadocio way, but I'm pleased to say that we as a church have been spending a little bit more time in the Old Testament over the last couple of years. Our Sunday morning Bible class has completed a study of Genesis and then a study of Exodus, and now we're moving into the book of Joshua. Last winter we had an extensive Sunday morning sermon series from the book of Jonah, if you can imagine. An extensive series from a very short book. What I'll have to say, and I'm not saying this because I preached it, but I enjoyed preparing for that series about as well as any series I've ever encountered. I'm hoping in a couple of years that I can be certain that you've forgotten it and I can go back and preach it again. That maybe I can do that this winter, and it might be all right with some of you. Today we're going to study from the book of Ruth. Sometime soon we'll study from the book of Esther. And then we'll turn some of our energies toward the book of Job. And I'm also hoping to have a sermon series sometime soon from the book of Amos. So we're getting some Old Testament studies here in the last little while, and that's a good thing. But for this morning now, let's open our Bibles to the book of Ruth. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth. Right after the book of Judges. A man by the name of Willard Winter states this: the book of Ruth is tucked into the canon of the Old Testament in a spot where it's like a breath of fresh air in a room that has become heavy with odor, or heavy with odors. And he's right on target by that, saying that. At this juncture in the Old Testament, things are pretty stinky. And along comes the book of Ruth, and it has a sweet fragrance to it. Chronologically, not only as it appears in our Bible, in most of our Bibles, the book of Ruth follows the Judges. Actually, it's kind of meshed in with the Judges. That's another book that we're going to study after the book of Joshua. We don't know who the exact author of the book of Ruth is, but that doesn't diminish its value for us. Because of its seemingly close connection with the book of Judges, some have speculated that Samuel, the Old Testament prophet Samuel, might be the author of the book of Ruth. those ones that speculate that also think that Samuel wrote the book of Judges, which we're not 100% certain on, but that's generally been the understanding for a long time. As to the date of the book, the ending of the book of Ruth, provides some helpful hints on this. It is not critical that we know when a book was written, but it sure helps us capture the atmosphere, the historicity of what's happening in the day that that book is written. And without meaning to spoil the surprise, happily ever after ending that we find in the close of the book of Ruth chapter 4 and verse 17 says, a son was born to Naomi. Naomi is the grandma. A son was born to Naomi through Ruth and Boaz. So they named him Obed. He is the father of Jesse, and Jesse is the father of David. So from that verse, we can work backwards. Ruth was the great-grandmother of David, of King David. And without taking time this morning to show you all the math figures, if we work ourselves backwards in time from the birth of King David, or the apex of King David, his rule and reign, this puts the birth of Obed somewhere in the last years of the judgeship of Gideon. Gideon is found in the book of Judges, somewhere around 1150 BC. Now, that was a long time ago, but that's generally the time frame for what we're about to study this morning. And this, of course, coincides, as we would expect it to do, with, here's what we find in Ruth chapter 1 and verse 1. It came about in the days when the judges governed that there was a famine in the land. So here we are. The writer says this was in the days when the judges judged the land. And we think that the story of Ruth dovetails with the reign of Gideon. Now, as to the story that unfolds in this 4-chapter narrative, how many of you have read the book of Ruth recently? Lads to leaders, but not many of the rest of us? All right, then your assignment this week is to read this brief work. And it's only 85 verses. I mean, you could do that this afternoon in probably a half hour, even if you're a slow reader. But this morning I want to give an overview of the story, and then I'll leave it up. Maybe I'll whet your appetite. You'll want to know some of the finer details, and you can find those out by just going to the scriptures and reading all 4 of these chapters. Chapter 1, let's begin. The story begins with the family of Elimelech. Chapter 1, verses 1 through 5. Elimelech is a patriarch or a leader among the people of Israel. And his wife's name is Naomi. And they have 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion. They are residents of Bethlehem. Now, Bethlehem, it's a hard word to say. I don't know exactly how it's supposed to be said. But Bethlehem Epaphra. They are called Epaphrites. If you live in Bethlehem, you're also known as an Epaphra. The meaning of their names is helpful to us. I don't know if we do that at all today. Maybe some of you, most of us in this gathering, is not very likely that our parents gave us a name because the name means a certain thing. Usually my middle name is Boyd. That was my grandpa's name. So we get it from other relatives, or sometimes, I don't know, you young ones, Chris and Charlie, is that something you research? What does canon mean? I mean, I just use that word here, but it's spelled different than your canon. So see, we don't think that way today. But in Old Testament times in particular, and into the New Testament, when they gave a child a name, they would know what that name meant. So here we find it's helpful to us. Elimelech himself means God is king. Well, that's pretty impressive. And Naomi means gracious. Wouldn't it be nice to be married to a woman whose name was gracious? And Maholan means the weaker one, or the weakly one. And Chilean means pining. Well, a famine has struck the land of Bethlehem in Judah, which causes Elimelech to assess that he has, if he's going to survive with his wife Naomi and their two sons, they've got to leave. The famine, they're going to cross the Dead Sea. I know that's not a pretty name for a big body of water. You think, well, why did they name it the Dead Sea? Well, it's pretty salty and there's not a whole lot of good fishing in it. People say the same thing about us. If we want to attract tourism, why do we have Mosquito Lake? Can you imagine somebody from afar saying, I want to take a vacation, I think we'll go to Mosquito Lake. It sounds really nice. But there's history behind it, and so we stay with it. And then, so they're going to cross the Dead Sea. We don't know what route they took, if they went under the southern. Actually, Bethlehem and Moab are almost on the same lateral plane here, except one is on the eastern side. Bethleham's on the eastern side of the Dead Sea, and Moab is on the, Bethlehem is on the western side, and Moab is on the eastern side. We think they probably took the route over the top. And you might say, well, why, if they're on the same plane and just a little ways apart, why was there a famine over here but not over here? And the best explanation for that is probably that the Midianites, if you read, you can read about this in Judges chapter 7, Gideon fought against the Midianites, but the Midianites devastated the land of Judah. And part of the plan of attack when you would go after another country was to destroy much of their agriculture as you could. So that would create a great famine. So they could cross the Dead Sea, and over there in Moab there was no problem with the Midianites. They didn't have an argument. The Midianites had no argument with the Moabites, but they did with Judah. So Elimelech takes his family to the other side of the Dead Sea, envisioning, I think, from the outset that this is just going to be a stopgap measure. We're coming back to Bethlehem, but for the time being, to find sustenance and to get out of this famine, we're going to go there. So they went there, and while they were there, unfortunately, this is a pagan land, by the way. It's not a great place to raise a family, and that's why I think Elimelech and Naomi thought this is just going to be a short-lived thing. We'll come back to precious Bethlehem later on. But while they're there, Elimelech dies, and Naomi is left a widow, which is hard in any time frame, but it was especially hard in ancient times. And she's left with two sons to raise. These two sons grow up quickly, and they marry Moabite women, which again, as I say, was a kind of a pagan world. They didn't believe in Jehovah God. But these two girls, these two women, seem to come to believe, as Naomi does, in Jehovah God. Orpha was one daughter's name. We think she married Chilean. We're not really told in the text whose wife is who. And we think then Ruth married Mahlah. The two sons died. Even though they run from the famine, there's still problems. So not only does Elimelech die and leave Naomi to be a widow with two sons, the sons marry, but then both sons die. As it turns out, when we look back on this, they're there about a decade. Long enough for the sons to mature, to marry, and then shortly thereafter to die. When the good news comes, however it came, that the famine in Judah has subsided, Naomi is eager to get back to Bethlehem. She's desperate to get back to Bethlehem. At least maybe there she'll have somebody that she knows, and some relatives and some friends. And her two daughters-in-law, whose husbands have also died, they originally agreed to go with Naomi back to Bethlehem. Apparently they had come to love Naomi. But somewhere in the journey, Naomi has a very frank discussion with her two daughters-in-law, and she basically tells them, you go back to your mothers. Don't come with me. There is no life for you in coming with me. You go back to your mothers. The fact that she said it that way, and that's exactly how she says it, go back to your mothers, may have indicated that both girls' fathers had also died, which tells us this was a really tough time in the history of this region, if not in the history of the world. Naomi has become embittered. If you look in chapter 1 and verse 13, the second part of verse 13, she says, would you therefore wait until they were grown? Would you therefore refrain from marrying? Then she answers the two daughters-in-law, no, my daughters. In other words, I'm not going to be able to give you any more sons. I'm past the age of childbearing, Ruth is telling them, or Naomi's telling them. So then she adds, for it's harder for me than for you, for the hand of the Lord has gone forth against me. Naomi's really down. She feels like God is against her. So Orpah, Naomi's hardships have made this, it's one thing to have to up and move with your husband to a new land because of a famine, but then your husband dies, and then your two sons die. It's just one problem on top of another for Naomi. And now Naomi feels like even though the girls love her and they want to go back with her, she can't take care of them. She doesn't know how she's going to feed her own self. She is what we call a widow in need and a widow indeed. She is having a very, very tough time. So she pleads with the daughters-in-law, go back to your own mothers, back to the land of Moab. Orpah agrees to. She kisses Naomi and returns home to Moab. But Ruth is of a different spirit. She clings to Naomi. She would not let go of her. And here's what she says in verses 16 and 17. She's speaking to her mother-in-law. Now, these are beautiful words, very poetic words. In fact, some of these words have been put to music and they're used in weddings to describe the love that a husband may have for his wife and vice versa. But this is Ruth pledging her fidelity to her dear mother-in-law Naomi. She says, do not urge me to leave you or to turn back from following you, for where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God shall be my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. Thus may the Lord do to me, and worse, if anything but death parts you and me. Now that's Ruth speaking to her beloved mother-in-law. So she goes back with Naomi. When they arrive in Bethlehem, they're greeted warmly. It says in verse 19 of chapter 1, all of the city was stirred, meaning full of emotion. Naomi tells them, though, they call her by name, Naomi, and what does that mean? It means gracious. And she speaks up and says, don't call me that anymore. I've changed my name. My name is now Mara. My name is bitter. Call me Mara. Call me bitterness. Verse 20 is where she says that. She tells her old friends, verse 20, the Almighty has dealt with me very bitterly. I went out from here full. I had a husband and 2 sons when we left because of the famine. I went out full, but the Lord is bringing me back empty. I have no husband and no longer have my 2 sons. Chapter 1 ends with it being the time of the harvest, barley and wheat. When they get back to Bethlehem, it's time for harvest. So we're going to speed up a little bit here, so don't fall asleep. Aren't you glad there's just 4 chapters? In chapter 2, we meet Boaz. Boaz, we don't know it right away, but he's one of Elimelech's relatives. At least Ruth doesn't know it right away. And here we see the providence of God unfolding further. Now I added that word further because the providence of God has already been at work here. The providence of God took Ruth and Naomi and Elimelech to Moab, and it was in Moab that one of her sons finds Ruth, who turns out to be a wonderful wife, even though he doesn't live very long. So God's providence is already providing, but now God is going to sustain what he started. So Ruth asked Naomi's permission to go into the fields to gather grain. This is a great time of respect in households. So even though Ruth is Naomi's daughter-in-law, she shows reverence and respect for Naomi in asking her permission. Can I go out and work the fields to try to put grain on our table, to try to get us some bread? So in verse 3, it says that she happened to come into the portion of the field belonging to Boaz. And I would ask you to go back and reread that, chapter 2 and verse 3. This is not happenstance. It's not, this is God's providence here. Boaz is a gentleman who is eager, and he begins instantly to watch out for and to watch over Ruth. He warns her. Now you can imagine, this is a tough time to live. And there was not always gentlemanlike behavior among the workers in the field, especially towards young girls or young women, and especially so towards young women who were of a foreign land coming into their region. But Boaz warns Ruth. He says to her, don't go into any other fields. You stay within my property. And he urges her to go out with the other girls. In other words, don't go out just as a single woman out into the field. You're going to jeopardize yourself if you do that. Go out with the other maidens. And he then gives a stern warning to his male servants. He says to them, don't you touch her. Chapter 2 and verse 22. In other words, hands off, buddy. I know that Ruth is in the field, and if I hear that any of you are doing anything to her that you shouldn't be doing, it's going to get back to me and you're going to be in a heap of trouble. And then, practically speaking, he tells her, because she's not used to doing this kind of work, he tells her, drink lots of water. Don't neglect doing that. And then he tells her in verses 8 and 9, he says, I know about your past. Now this isn't threatening here, this is good, because he goes on to say, may the Lord reward your work and your wages be full from the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to seek refuge. Now let's look at chapter 2 and read from chapter 2 and verse 14 and 16. There's only a few verses that we'll be reading from each chapter, but this says, at mealtime, Boaz said to Ruth, come here that you may eat of the bread and dip your piece of bread in the vinegar. So she sat beside the reapers, and he served her roasted grain, and she ate and was satisfied and had some left. when she arose to glean, Boaz commanded her servants, saying, let her glean even among the sheaves, and do not insult her. There again is the warning. So it's a good day. She returns home to Naomi with a bushel basket of grain and tells Naomi tells her, what did you say this guy's name is? Boaz. It was the field of Boaz. And Naomi says, he's one of our relatives. So that's good news, and we'll find out. We're about to bring the story to a close here in just a little bit. One more page of notes. Chapter 3. This chapter gives us the title for our sermon today, The Romance of Redemption. Write this down in your notes. Luke chapter 25 and verse 25. This is what's called the law of redemption. Back in Old Testament times, God made a law that would provide for those who faced really hard times. And it's kind of complicated and a little bit detailed. You have to go to Leviticus to read all about it. But if somehow, because of a famine or whatever, your family lost its land, it can be bought back by one of your close relatives and kept in your family. So Naomi decides, when she hears that Ruth is gathering grain in Boaz's field, she decides let's play matchmaker. And this too was part of God's plan of redemption. So Naomi helps Ruth do some primping. Is that a word that you know? Ray, do you know the word primping? No, it's not the word pimping. Pimping is a whole lot different. Pimping is putting somebody else out to prostitution. I grew up with 3 sisters. Man, getting time in the bathroom was almost impossible in the mornings. Girls aren't the only ones that primp. Some boys do, but primping is all kind of things. It's like fixing your hair. It's like, somebody gave me this morning. It's like getting your lipstick on, right? Years ago, we went to Camp Judson, and they have a candy store nearby, and somehow the kids found out, I announced it to them that I loved the wax lips. So I would make a stipulation that if I gave permission to their counselors to let them go to the candy store, they had to bring me back a set of wax lips. And I would get good usage out of those, chewing them. I like that from the days of Halloween. So now, even years later, even though we haven't been in Judson for years, every once in a while a camper brings me some wax lips. So Nick and Haley bought me these this morning. I always have a hard time figuring out which is upside down. Anyway, primping. Naomi helps the girls to primp. She gets all cleaned up and prettied up. And to make a long story short, Naomi tells Ruth, go in there and throw yourself at Boaz's feet. Now, don't take me literally on that. That's kind of the idea. Here's what it says in chapter 3 and verse 7. When Boaz had eaten and drunk till his heart was merry, I don't necessarily read that as being drunk, but he's sated. He's had a feast and he's relaxing. He went in to lie down in the middle of the heap of grain, at the end of the heap of grain, and the story says that Ruth came to him secretly and uncovered his feet and lay down. And it says furthermore, and it happened in the middle of the night that the man was startled. What's that down at my feet? And he bent forward, and behold, a woman was laying at his feet. And it's dark, and he said to her, Who are you? And she answered, I am Ruth, your maid. So spread your covering over your maid, for you are a close relative. Now this gets lost in 2,000 years or more, 3,000 since it was written. What in the world is going on here? Let me assure you that this behavior on the part of Ruth was not an act of immodesty or anything lewd or sexual. This was an ancient custom among the people of Israel that had deep roots in the law of Moses. And here you could go back to Deuteronomy chapter 25 and verse 5. And it's called, not in this instance, the other one was called the law of redemption. This one is called the Levirate law. And the Levirate law basically provided for the caretaking of a woman who had been found to be husbandless and childless. A woman that found herself in that predicament way back then was really in a bind. So God provided that if somehow a young woman marries and her husband dies and she hasn't been able to have any children, that somebody's got to step in and help out. And the Levirate law would say that the next of kin is to offer himself for her to be his wife, and then for them to have children so that his name could live on. So Boaz recognizes Ruth's request as she lay at his feet that this is a proposal of marriage. Now it sounds a little audacious. Jeannie, it takes me back to when we were at Harding years ago. They would have Sadie Hawkins Week. Did they have that when you were there first? Okay, did away with it. Sadie Hawkins Week was basically 1 week out of the school year when all of the girls were invited to ask the boys out for dates. And us boys we liked that. That was cool. It did carry sometimes some sadness. Because, Josh, what if Sadie Hawkins Week came around and no girl asked you out? See, for most of the year, you can say, well, usually it's the guy that asks the girl out. Not so much so anymore necessarily, but so Sadie, this is kind of Sadie Hawkins Week. This is Ruth being able to make the proposal to Boaz saying, will you marry me? That's what's happening as she lay at his feet and she's asking for the cloak of God to help her, is what that's symbolic of. So Boaz is a man of integrity. He's willing to honor Ruth's proposal, but he knows the rules. Ruth has to first be offered to the closest relative. So Boaz loads up Ruth with an abundance of grain to go back to Naomi at the early dawn, before dawn, so that this thing is kept hush-hush, not because there's been anything immoral, but he doesn't want the rumor mill to get cranked up. So Ruth goes back to Naomi. She rehearses every detail, and Naomi tells her, sit tight, because Boaz will resolve this. So chapter 4, and we'll be done here shortly. Boaz goes to the gate of the city. He brings 10 men with him to resolve this matter of redemption. The gate of the city is like the courtyard, the meeting place, where all of the men gather to take up judicial matters and to deliberate on matters and to make decisions. I ran into something like this over in New Wilmington. The first year we went there as a camp, I had to go find hay, bales of hay. And I thought, well, this is in the Amish country, you ought to be able to find them all over the place. Well, I was striking out everywhere I looked. So finally, one day I went to the dollar store for something else, and across from the dollar store was this, like a barn stockyard or something. And there were like 10 or 20 Amish men standing outside talking. So I looked up there and I said, hey, excuse me, I said, can y'all tell me where I can buy some bales of hay? Bales of straw is what I asked them for. They had a conference. It's like they started talking in their German. And I'm thinking, all I want is a bale of hay. How big of a decision? Well, they had to have a gate meeting, a council meeting, and then they finally told me, maybe Andy Byler. My problem was I asked for a bale of straw. And had I said hay, they would have probably given me 10 names, but they were trying to think of who had straw. But anyway, same kind of an idea. Boaz lays out the details about Naomi and Ruth as relatives of Elimelech, chapter 4 and verses 3 and 4. And when it was just the land involved, when he offered this redemption to the closest relative, the relative said, "Oh yeah, I'll redeem it. You know, I'd love to get some more man." But when Boaz said, "Now wait a minute, Ruth, you have to marry Ruth. She's part of the package deal." Then the relative backed away and said, "No, I'm sorry, I'm out of this picture. I can't redeem it." Verse 6 of chapter 4. So Boaz makes a speech, verses 9 through 10. The story comes to a happy conclusion in verse 13. I love happy endings. So Boaz took Ruth. She became his wife. He went into her. The Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. And the women of the town reminded Naomi that they say to her in verse 14, "Blessed is the Lord who has not left you without a redeemer." Not talking about God himself there, but the law of redemption. With God's blessings, Naomi goes from being, remember her name meant gracious, but then she became bitter, changed her name to Mara, and now she's back to being Naomi again, back to being gracious. And the son that's born to Ruth and Boaz was named Obed, which means servant. And verse 17 tells us that Obed is going to have a son named Jesse, and that Jesse would have several sons, but one of those sons would be named David, as in King David. And eventually, through the descendants of David, is going to come Jesus, our Savior. And as I close in prayer, all of us, we ought to reflect on this when all of these divine inner workings. We're going to sing the Little Town of Bethlehem today in closing. Not as our invitation song, but as our closing. Think about that. Maybe it adds new meaning to Bethlehem that you never thought about. Father, thank you so much for stories like this that reassure us that you love us, that you care for us in times of great need. And we are reminded in reading this story how you work in so many wonderful ways that we often don't understand, but we trust that you care for us and love us, and will help that all things will work together for good, even in our difficult times. Thank you for Jesus, the answer to all of our needs. Through him we pray. Amen. If we can help you with your needs this morning, if you're ready to become a Christian, or you are a Christian and you're ready to renew your walk with the Lord, let us know. Let's all stand together and sing as Brian leads us in this.
Have thine own way, Lord, have thine own way. Thou art the potter, I am the clay. Mold me and make me after thy will. While I am waiting, yielded and still. Have thine own way.
Last one will be 996, we'll sing the first and the fourth verse.
Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Heavenly Father, we humbly come before you now, thanking you for this day and this opportunity to worship and sing praises to you. Heavenly Father, be with our family, and especially those who are sick and unable to attend. Please guide them and give them strength. Heavenly Father, let us take this message today to heart and be with us in understanding. Heavenly Father, forgive us of our sins and be with us. And it's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.